in the House today, and then I think subsequently the Senate, it now appears there will be two bills that will be voted on. But first, we have a clip from Meet the Press. This was from yesterday, which gives you a sense of why there's going to be two bills. Initially, there was just going to be a bill which represented the deal hammered out by Labor Secretary Marty Walsh that did not include not only any paid sick days, and people should be very clear about this. It's not just that there are no paid sick days for these railway workers. It is also that if you go on sick leave, even without pay, you are literally one step closer to being fired. I think they allow for like 3 days, and the fourth day you get fired. So it's not just that there's no paid sick days. There really are only a small limited number of sick days before you get fired. Remember, I mean, I know 3 separate people, unrelated, who had COVID over Thanksgiving, whose Thanksgivings were ended because of COVID. I know people who have been bedridden for days. We have one person out right now who's sick. Imagine having only 2 or 3 days a year where if you get a bad cold, day 4, you're fired.
And there's no rationale. It's not about money, as we talked to Jonah yesterday.
I don't think it's about money, but I do think it is it's about how many people they have to hire. I don't think it's the expense that would cost them to pay the sick days for them. I think they have been cutting workers for years, and they are doing it because this is what puts money in their pockets in terms of stocks. I'm convinced that's what it is. Nevertheless, here is, I guess, maybe the most recent Democrat elected to the House because her results came in late. There may have been 1 or 2 others. This is Representative Mary Peltola. She is the Democratic representative from Alaska. And here she is on Meet the Press. And I think it's because people like her came out with this, why there's going to be 2 bills. I'll explain that in a moment.
Are you planning to support this? How are you planning to vote?
I'm going to be in a lot of communication with union leaders, especially union leaders in Alaska. This, of course, is a very grave concern throughout the nation, including Alaska, with freight being so important to all Americans. But I am very concerned about the fact that the negotiation concluded without really getting where we needed to be in terms of sick leave. I think not having sick leave and not being able to go to a doctor or get care is an untenable situation, especially when we have the flu coming up. We've got an RSV outbreak, and we still have effects of COVID as well. So I just don't think it's right or fair to expect workers to go to work sick as a dog without being able to have a few days to recover.
Congresswoman, it sounds like you are a no vote at this point.
That would be the case at this point, yes.
Okay, and what would get you to yes? And how do you respond to the president and various companies saying, look, this could cause catastrophic damage to the nation's economy?
Well, I think it could also cause a catastrophic damage to the nation's economy if we're expecting a whole sector of employees to go to work sick. And repeatedly, I think making sure that freight workers have their immunity built up and can be a healthy workforce, I think that's critical to the economy as well.
Okay, so that paid sick days has to be addressed before you are willing to get on board with this legislation.
Yes, and it's not just paid sick days, it's the ability to have a sick day without the threat of being fired.
I mean, and I liked her framing here too, because you can come out and you can say that our economy has already suffered because of how skimpy these monopolistic freight railway companies have operated in terms of staffing. And this is there. We have a special status for railway and airlines because of its implications for national security and regarding our economy. And the way to make sure that we are safeguarding the economy is to make sure that they have enough staffing and they have enough healthy workers. And this is the way to ensure that. And that's the way you frame this. Aside from it being absolutely true, it also puts it the onus on the freight companies for jeopardizing our economy. For anybody who's going to vote and not support the ability of workers to have the ability to be sick and to take care of themselves. So right now, the latest is this. They are putting on the floor the bill that represents the deal that Marty Walsh had hammered out, which, again, does not include any opportunity for sick days for people. And in addition, they have now, and I would imagine as a function of representatives like Mary Peltola and other members of the Progressive Caucus, Jayapal has announced that there is some type of parliamentary move or rules or whatever it is that is the specific aspect of it. It's a procedure apparently known as the enrollment correction. They're going to mandate that any House legislation to codify the rail agreement will be accompanied by legislation that addresses the workers' longstanding demand for paid leave. And according to Day and Day, and what that means is if both the enforcement of the tentative agreement, that's the one that Walsh handed out, and the 7 sick days, because they've offered a bill that would allow for 7 paid sick days, pass, then the Senate would have to take them up together. They couldn't just pass the first and not the second and send that to the president. Now, this, of course, is contingent on both bills passing in the House. Now, really, I mean, there's a good chance that both bills won't pass in the House, and that is on the president and on Schumer and Pelosi, and really on the president, because they could have said, take Marty Walsh's deal, add 7 sick days. That's the bill.
Yeah, that's what you get for making us get involved.
That's the bill. Because if the workers decide that they're going to strike, they're going to get at least 7 work days, paid sick days. So the bill is this. One bill, take it or leave it. But now you're given an opportunity for, I don't know, a handful of Democrats to just simply abandon the second bill, and then that's dead, and the first one passes. And the first one's going to pass. Make no mistake about it. You're going to have, I would say, anywhere from like 50 to 150, maybe more Republicans voting for that second bill because it favors the rail companies. Or at the very least, they're not going to block it. Let's put it that way. They're not going to block the passage of either one of those bills. So not sure when that votes are going to take place. We'll talk about it. Emma will be talking about it more tomorrow. If the bill, if something happens over the course of the show, we will mention it. But this is, there was an opportunity here for Biden to do the right thing, and he didn't. And he blew it.
Train Joe.
And this is a guy, too, who, I guess it was 30 years ago, voted against the bill that would have ended a rail strike at that time.
One of few to do that.
Yep. And I think there were 7 in the Senate, if I remember correctly. And there's really no reason whatsoever they couldn't have imposed this. Really no reason at all. Raphael Warnock has just been gifted the perfect closing message in Georgia. It goes like this. Rail workers in Georgia and across the country want paid sick days. They currently get none. That's just wrong. I have colleagues in the Senate like Marco Rubio, a Republican, John Hickenlooper, a Democrat, who want a deal for these workers that gives them the dignity they are asking for. I urge the Congress and the president to support at least a week of paid sick days for these essential rail workers. It's a $2,000 check dynamic in a tight electoral window. I think it's worth the shot. Even if Herschel somehow can pull off a strike would ruin the economy line, it's easy to argue why these workers should have their dignity. It seems like such a slam dunk to me. I don't understand why they... I really don't. I really don't. But, you know, who knows? Maybe... I don't want to sacrifice my lifetime rail pass, man.
I mean, the workers are probably going to give you crap if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. There's no reason for any of those Amtrak workers to be so excited about, like, thanks, Joe.
Oh, the 8,400th trip. Great, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm currently sick, but I'll try not to get you sick.
Iowa Ryan, my job is bad about sick days. I had COVID in my house and a car problem. I called in 6 times in the past year. I can't call in again until April. It takes a year for the call-in to get off your record. It's stressful. I work in a cannabis grow room. I mean, it's just insane to me.
I mean, in the broad thing, like, we went through a pandemic and we didn't change our healthcare system at all. We just said maybe we'll do some Cobra stuff. But, like, we lost millions of people. And, you know.
I mean, look, the Cobra thing was really more about, like, again, if you were on the receiving end of it, it looked great because you didn't have to pay for the Cobra. It's just that our refusal to actually, you know, don't want anybody to think that safety net is a hammock type of attitude. But what's also sort of effed up is that, like, I think, like, what's more nuts to me is that we don't have paid sick leave. Like, that didn't pass. Like, I mean, how do you justify that in the context of, like, an emergency that we just went through?
Yeah, I saw Atrios point out Pete Buttigieg, like, trying to give people discipline here. It's like, you just got off paternity leave, bro. Like, when we all supported you doing so.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Horrible. It's so politically tone deaf and stupid. And you know, I get the idea that, like, there's this impending, you know, sort of shock to the economy. We got to do something about it. But put in that sentence, 7 paid sick days, period, end of story. Who's the constituency that's going to be like, I don't mind the government interceding on behalf of management without paid sick days, but I really do mind the government interceding on behalf of the American public and in favor of 7 paid sick days. I mean, it seems to me that maybe there's some theory like, well, if we do this for the railway workers, everybody's going to be wondering why we don't get paid sick leave. But they were trying to push that in Build Back Better. I don't get it. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. All right, let's turn to, and again, we'll keep our eyes open for any vote. Reverend Wright asked, will the railroad rank and file wildcat strike? Well, here's the thing. My understanding is, and so Dayan says this, okay, got some clarification on this. What this mainly does is it ensures a vote in the Senate on sick days amendment. It does not fuse the two bills together. All right, so Dayan was wrong. This ensures that there will be a vote in the Senate, but it is more than likely that they will not have the votes to pass the amendment in the Senate. It doesn't fuse the two bills. So, correction from what we said up top. And in that case, what you're going to see is the Democrats are all going to vote for the paid sick leave bill, but there's going to be enough Republicans to pass probably the deal. And so this paid sick leave won't happen. And then the question becomes, will the railroad rank and file wildcat strike? It would be a wildcat strike. It would be an unauthorized strike. They would be able to be replaced by the railway companies. But I don't know. You've got the biggest union, 70,000. How many would it take? How many people would it take to go on strike to bring the railway companies to their knees and the economy to their knees? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the Senate. But my guess would be we're going to see the deal pass with 10 votes from Republicans, 60-40, 61-40, and then the amendment not pass. But I do wonder if they can get the full 10 even to support the Biden deal. It'll be interesting to see that. I imagine that they will, because the Republicans don't want this to be about them, and they want to side on the side. They want to land on the side of management. But the bottom line is, the Biden administration, the bill they sent to the floor, should have included the 7 days. That should not have had to have passed as an amendment. That should have been the bill.
And that was their intention. Like, that was why Pelosi said no poison pills or anything else like that. We just want to do this simple.